Hello everyone and welcome to today's presentation of Corel's Designer Technical Suite X5. My name is Don Grease. I am the Manager of Business Development and Vendor Relations here at Lifeboat Distribution. And we are a proud distributor of Corel's innovative line of software, so this is a genuine privilege for Lifeboat to host today's presentation, and I want to thank you all for attending this webinar. Through today's presentation, you will be pleased to learn that the Corel Designer Technical Suite offers features and benefits for your customers regardless of the design tools they currently use today, and that Corel once again offers you, the reseller, a partner program that offers all of the support and tools you need to succeed. I know your time is valuable, so let me get right to the introductions for our main panelists. Joining me on the panel today from Corel are Klaus Vossen, who is the Product Manager for Designer Technical Suite, and Christina Desforges, Account Manager for Channel Sales for North America. Thank you both for your participation and welcome. Before I turn the presentation over to our main panelists, I do want you to know that we do encourage you to ask questions, and you may do that by entering your questions in the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of the screen. At the conclusion of the presentation, we will answer as many questions as time permits. So with that, let me just turn the presentation over at this time to Klaus. And Klaus, you can take it away.
Thank you, Don, and welcome to this presentation of Corel Designer Technical Suite X5, the current version. Let me take a second to switch to the screen so that you can all see my screen. Okay, I hope that works now. So Corel Designer Technical Suite X5, for those of you who know other Corel products, there is Corel Draw Graphics Suite, the flagship product of Corel, the graphics applications suite for creative design and layout purposes. Corel Designer Technical Suite that I want to show you now is a technical derivative product of that flagship product, and I will show you in the next couple of minutes how that fits into the workflows of several user segments that your customers should belong to. So what does technical communication, which Corel Designer Technical Suite is made for, mean? It can be very different things that customers, users think of technical as technical communication. Of course, engineering drawings and diagrams that you see here in bold letters, but also some users are doing very different things like even business presentations or advertisements with a technical-oriented graphics toolset. The reason behind that is that in various industry segments, the tasks can be can span a broad range of requirements, from pure engineering-based drawings and illustrations to marketing-oriented graphics like advertisements or business presentations. Now, before I go into the application set and show you some highlights of Corel Designer Technical Suite X5, I want to give you a brief overview of the target industries of those user segments that we are addressing with that toolset that the toolset of Corel Designer Technical Suite X5 serves very well. There is what we call technical communicators, technical illustrators in industries such as manufacturing or telecom, also architecture, engineering and constructions, the AEC segment, and a few other industry segments that do technical documentation and technical illustration as part of that to present the products to a partially non-technical audience, so they need to create understandable documentation for their products to make them work with their audience, with their customers. Then there is a more generic space of users in enterprises mostly, again found in manufacturing, but also in other segments like chemicals, pharmaceuticals, where basically every graphics that you create is technically oriented. So you need to work with CAD files, you need to bring in those various technical sources into, even if it's a business presentation, you need to fuel it with those kinds of sources. And that's what a technical-oriented graphics tool like Corel Designer Technical Suite can help you a lot with. It's easier to use than a CAD application, which you might need to use otherwise. And it has those technical-oriented features that you need to work with those kinds of files. And it's much better suited for that job than a creative graphics application like Corel Draw, for example. On the top, I want to quickly mention in those technical illustrators user segment, there is a specialized group you find in discrete manufacturing segments, aerospace and defense, automotive and machinery, for example. Those users need to work with very specific high-level, high-end 3D CAD files. We have a module for those users called Deep Exploration CCE that enables them to excuse me, to directly use files from CATIA, Pro Engineer, Inventor, and those high-end 3D CAD workstations without the need of a 3D CAD license, without the need of experience in such a tool. So that's perfectly suited for those technical illustrators working in certain manufacturing environments. I will show you how that works and how these users can benefit from those features in a few minutes. With that, I want to dive into the application to show you a few highlights of Corel Designer Technical Suite X5. On that box shot, you see it says a Corel Draw product. That's what I said in the beginning. Corel Designer Technical Suite is a derivative of Corel Draw Graphics Suite. It includes the whole Corel Draw Graphics Suite. So if you get to users that are familiar with Corel Draw Graphics Suite, they will be familiar with Corel Designer Technical Suite in no time, because it is a related product. It's based on the Corel Draw Graphics Suite, and on top of that, I'll show you what the technical orientation means based on that graphics application set. So I want to start showing you a few highlights of a typical workflow of a technical graphics user by starting with connecting to the various sources. In technical documentation and creation of technical graphics, in most of the cases, you will not start from scratch. You will have some kind of source file that you need to work on. It may be a legacy file, it may be something published previously as a PDF, for example. So you can work with PDF files. You can work with other source files like the Adobe file formats. And you can work with CAD files using the latest AutoCAD DWG, DXF file formats that most CAD applications in the 2D space create, and that you can work with here. For accessing this content, there is a component included called Corel Connect. And with that component, I show you now, that's a full screen browser for content of any kind. So you can browse for vector files, for bitmap images. And I use a keyword here, for example. I want to find content for my current digital camera project that I need to document, and then you see here I can even search in online sources like iStock Photo, or search on my hard drive in the network. And with those previews here, you have a good view on what this source file is about, and if that's something you want to use, that you can use in your project, then just drag it here, and I take that one as well. And with that selection, I go back to my application where I want to author all that documentation. And in here, I can have the same view, basically. One moment, where am I right now? I'm lost in my own screen. I'm sorry, where's my Connect Docker? Kind of blind. There it is. So there you see on the right side exactly the same Docker with those elements, and down here there's the tray which has that selection. Oh my god. I'm sorry. Something got wrong here. We will be back in a few seconds. Hopefully that's a unique thing. So once the application is up again, I will continue showing what you can do with the content that you pick and select. So here we are. Okay. Now it works as I wanted to see that. So in that tray now you see exactly those elements that I picked in the full screen browser before, and from here I can use those elements in my working document by dragging it into the document, into the active page, and off we go. Now going to the next step, or still keeping with that theme of connecting to design assets to source files, there is a lot of different sources that you might want to or need to use in a technical graphics document. One of them still is legacy paper documents that you need to get into the digital workflow. And I have an example for a scanned blueprint here on the left. And there is an application, a component included in Corel Designer Technical Suite for working with that. That's called Corel Power Trace. And what that does is that turns a scanned bitmap into a vector drawing. And I can use presets here like technical illustration as a preset. And that will calculate everything I need to get here. You see that on the right, a vector drawing based on that not that high quality scan. And that's what I have done before, so I cancel that. That's what you see here on the right side. That's the result of such a tracing process. And based on that, you can work with lines in here, so no pixels any longer. And with those lines, you can do a lot of different things much better than working with the image, with a scanned image. For example, I use a fill here. Okay, there is a smart fill tool that will find the borders, and then you can modify or enhance an existing drawing precisely. A different or another option would be to use those lines as anchor points for new drawing objects. So here you go with precise drawing features based on a scanned bitmap in the beginning, and with that one step, converting it into a vector drawing, you have a precise basis for doing your modifications and working with that file again, instead of redrawing it from scratch, which would be the other but quite painful option. Still keeping with working with source files, there is an increasingly important topic, 3D files. To access 3D files in a graphics application isn't that common, so you, in most of the cases, need high-level, high-end tools for that. In Corel Designer Technical Suite, there is a 3D import capability, a 3D import component included, that is the Deep Exploration application. So that is included with the basic Corel Designer Technical Suite X5 license. Every user gets access to what I show you now. And there's two levels of that application. So what I show you now is what comes integrated with Corel Designer Technical Suite X5. And then I mentioned the high-level add-on Deep Exploration CCE, which is for manufacturing customers that need access to specific 3D CAD file formats. And that's the difference. The integrated, the included component level supports basic 3D files that an engineer and architect would use, like 3D Studio files, AutoCAD files. That is supported with the included component. And then there is the add-on license that adds support for 3D CAD file formats from CATIA, ProEngineer, SolidWorks, Inventor, and you name it. So it's all in there with that additional component. So you have direct access to all the native 3D CAD files that are used in the manufacturing segments. Now this 3D component here, as I show you here, is a full-fledged 3D visualization application. So you have access to 3D files on your graphics, on your illustration desktop. You have not only access to the files visually, you also have access to the structure of the file. That becomes very important for those manufacturing customers where you see quite complex assembly files that you might need to access in their structure with sub-assemblies and parts to identify what you need to move or change. With that application, you can do a lot of things. You are guided through the steps up here with that task-based or task-oriented workspace. You can do, for example, cross-sections, specify all that, see that on the left, which axis you want to use, and all those specific settings. Same with other tasks, like you want to do an animation, for example, an exploded view. You can set that up in that 3D application. I have done an example here for detaching the lens. I do that slowly so that you can see something with the screen broadcast. And all that is included with the 3D visualization component in Corel Designer Technical Suite X5. You can do a lot more steps. In the end, that's all preparation for creating technical illustrations or high-end, high-quality renderings of a 3D model. So going through that render step, I have two main options. One is I create a technical illustration as a vector file for Corel Designer, or I use the integrated image editing application Corel Photo Paint and create a bitmap rendering in a ray-traced photoreal quality and open that in the image editing application for further retouching. What I do now, I send that to Corel Designer as a vector illustration. I use a flat color fill here. Okay with that. And that takes a few seconds now to process the view that I had active here and create a 2D vector illustration from here. And in a moment you will see a high quality vector illustration that has been inserted into the active document in my technical illustration application Corel Designer. And here we are. That's something that takes a lot more steps, and you get less quality if you try that with a 3D CAD application. So if I move a little closer here, you see those thick and thin lines to highlight the hidden borders or hidden faces of the model that has been imported, and it's aspects like that that make this solution very unique with the high quality that you get here. You get access to the structure of the file. If you look to the right, there is a similar setup as you have seen in 3D, which gives access to the whole structure of the file, so you can access every single part or component in that drawing. So that's all built in and makes that a very efficient workflow to use and repurpose those 3D files that are created in engineering departments, and you have access to that here and can use it in a high quality and efficient way. From here, there's of course a lot you might need to do with such 3D sourced illustrations. And there's a lot you can do with Corel Designer with that. I want to give you just a few small examples for that. So that's an import from 3D like I did before. And you can imagine that for several documentation pieces, as this example shows here, it's not really useful to do everything in 3D. So you can see those screens here. It doesn't really make sense to try and set this all up in 3D just to print it out in a user manual, in a user guide afterwards in that view. So to do that with a graphics application, you would almost be lost, because what you can do in a graphics application is you create a rectangle, and then, well, what do you do from there? You need to squeeze it, stretch it, rotate it to get to that angles to have a projected view like this isometric view that I imported from 3D. Now with Corel Designer, I remove that and use the projected views that are included here. So I go to the right isometric projected view, use the same rectangle tool again, and then I have a perfectly aligned rectangle to that isometric projection. And you saw even that hatch fill moves into that projection to follow that projection angles. Now I can do a lot of other things with that. For example, use round corners. I put them up a little bit so that you can see it. Okay, that should help. And now when stretching that rectangle, it stays in that projection angle. That's the first thing. And the next thing is those rounded corners also maintain their integrity, so they are not stretched. And that's all details that make Corel Designer a precise solution for creating that kind of technical illustration and technical graphics in a very easy but yet precise and high quality way. One more example for technical illustration features I want to show you in the non-isometric view. In technical manuals, you often see callouts like these number 1 and number 2 here to draw attention to certain elements and link them to, for example, a part in the text, and use those numbers for that link. Now, with Corel Designer, you have a callout tool that does the majority of the steps for you, while you only need to drag and drop a line. I use an automatic increment starting with 3 here, as 1 and 2 are already there. And then all I need to do is drag lines from the point that I want to start that callout at to my position of the number. It creates the line, it creates the number, and you can see that with that 7 here, there's a white mask around it. That's a halo that separates the call-out leader line visibly from the technical drawing, and that makes a lot of sense to make that technical illustration much easier to understand. Now, what happens when you need to swap or change the order of the numbers? There is a tool in here that does that for you. I want to make number 7 number 2, and the other should realign, and that's what this functionality does. So I now have a consistent numbering in that drawing. I could also make sure that I have a consistent style on all those callouts. So I do that quickly by changing that. So now they all look consistent, having the same sizes and that circle around it. So again, something that makes the tool very efficient and very easy to use for technical illustrators and technical graphics users. A few other areas to highlight, as Corel Designer Technical Suite is much more than one technical illustration application that would be comparable to Corel Draw and Adobe Illustrator alone. leaving that technical orientation, that technical focus out of sight, because that's what makes Corel Designer unique. But it's a Corel Designer technical suite, so it's more than that. There is the image editing application Corel Photo Paint, and that's tightly integrated into the workflow. So I have my technical document here. I have a photo I need to work with here, but for example, for print output, it's rather difficult to use color photos, and in technical documentation you rarely find color photos. So I need to change that color bitmap into a black and white or grayscale drawing, and I use Corel Photo Paint for that job. So you see, comparing the UI of Corel Photo Paint in the front and Corel Designer behind that, there is a lot of similar elements that make working between those applications very easy. And I just want to show you one thing to turn that image into grayscale. And it's not just, turn all the colors into grayscale. It should also make sure that the light green and the light blue is not exactly the same gray afterwards, so that you cannot see the contrast and cannot see what you really want to show in that image. So you can control the color channels here and make sure that you have a high contrast grayscale image in the end, and that can look very different as I show you when I get back to Corel Designer. One other thing I want to show you while we're in Corel Photo Paint, let me open one other sample just for a second. Corel Photo Paint is really a complete professional image editing tool. So it's much more than doing quick edits only to photos. You can do a lot of that in Corel Designer already. But with Corel Photo Paint, you see here you have a tool that enables you to work with structured bitmaps like layers that I use here. So I can quickly edit photos. I can try different ways of showing it. So you see here there's a transparent layer with a drop shadow and things like that. So all these professional settings and retouch features are included with the Corel Photo Paint application, and that can be very useful in this example for an architect using the Corel Designer Technical Suite as the CAD complement, doing all those tasks that a CAD application really isn't good for. So creating presentation style documents from CAD, sourced from CAD, and for example creating those renderings. So that's also a 3D output from the deep exploration component used here as the basis for this presentation. Now closing that again, saving that grayscale image, and I finish editing, close Corel Photo Paint. I'm back in Corel Designer, and you see the changes are reflected here. So that bitmap editing has basically taken place in my document, not going back to the hard drive, searching for that edited image and inserting it again. One other aspect for the editing portion for Corel Designer Technical Suite, I mentioned it in the beginning. Corel Designer Technical Suite includes Corel Draw Graphics Suite. That serves those users who are familiar with Corel Draw Graphics Suite, but might need those technical-oriented features that I have highlighted a few of, need those 3D CAD repurposing and visualization component, and all that is in Corel Designer Technical Suite then, but they still can use everything they know from Corel Draw Graphics Suite. And in the very first slide, I have presented you with the versatile tasks or different tasks that are asked by technical graphics users. And doing a more creative-oriented graphics like an advertisement, like a marketing collateral, that's what Corel Draw is made for. And you have that in the suite and can work with those components seamlessly together, as you can see in this example here, using a 3D source file for creating marketing collateral with that same tool set that you use for creating the technical documentation out of that same CAD base, CAD source files. Going to the last step in the workflow, once you have used your source files, you have created all the technical illustrations from that. Now, of course, you have to output to publish those files, and that's where Corel Designer is also a very versatile solution, same as on the import, on the input side. So you have various options for outputting documents from output to Office that I want to show you here. There is an export for Office wizard that doesn't leave you with tons of file formats that you need to select the best from. So you just choose the purpose, and then with that preview you already see if it's good enough, or maybe you should turn from an editing option to best compatibility to have a good representation of the graphic and leave the editing within Corel Designer, which is the recommendation anyway. But going from there to high-end output like aerospace and defense standards, S1000D, Web CGM, that's all supported within Corel Designer Technical Suite X5. And the nice thing in that is that all the different media outputs that are requested and required today are supported with that single source document. So you don't need to create one for print and the other one for online and a third one for a specific industry standard that you need to serve. It's all built in Corel Designer Technical Suite so that you can create all that output in very few steps from your source file, from the one file that you are creating for those purposes. I show you here the web export that gives you a selection of best output formats with a preview with some information next to it, so that you can quickly pick the best file format for your purpose, and off you go. With that, I want to end the presentation of features in Corel Designer Technical Suite. I wanted to give you a brief overview of the feature set, so I, of course, only touched a few highlights of the features. It is a very extensive feature set. As you can see here, Corel Designer Technical Suite includes a lot of components. I have presented Corel Designer that I'm working with as my main application here throughout the presentation, the bitmap editing application Corel Photo Paint. I have briefly touched Corel Power Trace to convert bitmaps into vector drawings, and the Corel Connect application to find content that you need as source files. And I have briefly touched the deep exploration component that comes included as a 3D visualization component. The add-on makes the difference for manufacturing customers, including additional file format support for native 3D CAD files, CATIA, ProEngineer, SolidWorks, and so on. So that's the scope of the Corel Designer Technical Suite and that add-on specifically for manufacturing customers. Now, you have seen a few feature highlights. Of course, you don't need to remember all of that. I only hope I could give you a few examples and ideas for what this is good for and which users will benefit from that. We have supporting information for you that should help you presenting the product, selling the product to your users, from, of course, information on the website that also includes vertical-specific information for different industry segments in case you need more details there, to a sales guide that you will also get after this presentation, I think, with more information on how to position this product, where are the main benefits, things that I have shown you at least partially. And I also want to point out there's a short video on the website that you can point customers to get a very quick high-level overview in 4 minutes, see a few highlights, what the workflow is about. So a very condensed version of what I have shown you now. Next slide, last slide from my side. Before I hand over back to Don, I want to give you the contact details for your questions at Corel. So we have for licensing inquiries Brian Hanlon and Maury Attias, and Christina DeForge for the partner specific information. You can see the pricing on the left side to give you a rough idea. That's all the suggested retail pricing, so that you get a better understanding of where this product fits in. With that, I want to hand back to Don for following up on all the questions that may have arisen.
All right, thank you, Klaus, so much for the very detailed and informative presentation. I'm going to take a quick view here to see if we have questions for you. Let's just see. I don't see anything entered right at the moment. I do see a comment. Thank you, learned a lot. So folks, what I'm going to do is I am going to continue on with what we call our traditional call to action. And, you know, while I'm going through this, if you think of anything, please feel free to enter your question, and I will continue to monitor questions and ask them as they come up. Anyway, what we do encourage you to do is, as Klaus suggested, visit the Corel website. There is a ton of information up there that you can use to help present Corel Designer Technical Suite X5 to your customers. I also encourage you to contact Christina Desforges if you have any questions about working with Corel. In fact, Christina, did you want to add anything here?
Sure. Well, I'll thank our partners who joined us today for the call. And as you mentioned, Don, I encourage anyone who has questions in relation to our partner program and or wish to set up a call with our licensing team. I'd be happy to facilitate that for the partners on the line. And post-webinar, Don and his team will provide out to the partners in attendance the collateral that we mentioned on the sales information slide. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Christina. I also encourage you to certainly contact your Lifeboat Distribution account rep. My name is shown here with my contact information. You can certainly call me, but if you know who your rep is, contact your rep. They will be happy to help schedule a further demonstration of Designer Technical Suite. We can help with any opportunity, give you pricing or any pre-sales assistance that you need. One more look for questions. I'm not seeing any at the moment. So with that, I'm going to say that I hope you found today's presentation valuable. Corel is truly a great company to partner with. They have a superb team. They are always ready, willing, and able to help you grow your deals and your business. And so I encourage you to introduce Corel Designer to your customers. I want to thank you all again for attending today's presentation. Once again, it was a pleasure for Lifeboat Distribution to be a part of today's event, and we hope we will hear from each of you soon. So now for everyone at Lifeboat Distribution and Corel, thank you and have a great day.